Welcome to the Barre Beat Podcast, live from Main Street, Barre, Vermont. Tonight with us, we have Miss Sarah Helman, who's running for school board. Hi, Sarah. And the lovely Raylene, as always.
Hello, everyone. Good to hear you. See ya.
Yeah.
All that good stuff. We have a musical concert going on behind us.
I know.
Hopefully, no one can hear that.
It's very, very loud.
Yeah, I can literally hear the words word for word. It sounds like they're driving off.
Yep, I don't hear it anymore. What was the song?
I just forgot the name of it. I'm singing
Sing
it in my head.
What is it?
No, I don't. Sing.
Aw.
I have to have a few.
You have to have a few to do some karaoke?
Yeah.
I never have a few, so karaoke
Or just be at
sounds
home.
like fine.
Cleaning and stuff, all by myself.
Not in front of hundreds of people.
Right. Yeah. Preferably.
I
But
get
it's
that.
fun to do that.
Maybe for you.
I'm not going to lie. When I'm at home working from home, I tell my friend that starts with A I say, hey, her name, and then I say play music.
Whatever
and
this
I'm
or
just
that.
like jamming out while I'm working on my.
That's the best way to
stuff.
work as
It
far as
is.
I'm concerned.
I
I
agree.
can't work with music,
No?
especially with lyrics. It's got to be instrumental.
Yep. Because then
Yep.
you want to sing it and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you lose concentration. Yeah.
So when I'm reviewing medical records, I can't. I have to turn everything off when I'm reviewing medical records. But when I'm just processing, I get like into the zone.
I was trained to focus on music with my music background.
Yep.
I can't tune it out. it's not
Not in you.
That's-
not possible.
Understandable, and something that we certainly will be discussing tonight because you are running for school board, Sarah.
I am on the ballot. Yes.
So we would love to know what your why is. Give us a 500 feet aerial of why Sarah Helman's running.
Well, so I ran last year and didn't win. And so I actually wasn't going to run this year. And I, at sort of the last minute, decided that I didn't want the seat to go unopposed. So I'm running against the current board chair. And I think that I can't let him have it. That's not in my nature, and nobody else was stepping up to the plate. So I haven't put a whole lot into campaigning. I've had some folks helping me with putting signs out, and I have put some stuff on Front Porch Forum. But I am passionate about education. I am passionate about my alma mater. I went to Barrytown and Spalding. And when I was there, they were really good schools, and I want us to get back to that. We've been putting more and more money into these schools and taxpayer dollars, and we're not getting a return on our investment. We're not seeing the an increase of testing scores, and while I know that's not the whole picture, there's a lot of growth to be done.
All right. So I do want to let folks know you can ask questions in the chat, and we'll ask the questions of Sarah. So feel free to bump in there what you want to see answered. And hello, Mr. Bob. How you doing? See that he already
Bob Kershaw.
Kershaw, yeah. Used to be on the board for the Justice Center with him.
Fun fact, I worked with Bob Kershaw at Bethel School when I first started teaching.
Did you?
I did.
Nice.
At Whitcomb Junior Senior High and Bethel Elementary.
Nice.
So let's talk about that, because one of the things that you are bringing into your run for school board is your history as a school teacher at BCEMS. And explain to me explain to our viewers how that experience is going to bring you into being a good representative for the school district, for those that are voting for you and for the staff that are there.
Yeah, so I mean, I have experience as a teacher. I taught instrumental music for 9 years. 6 of those years were at Barre City Elementary Middle School, and so I know the workings of the school. I know the layout. I know I've been a BEA union member. So I have experience with how things work. And I am pro union, and I am also pro school board and having some oversight on school policy and making sure that that these policies are followed and we're holding the administration accountable. And I don't see that happening right now.
So you mentioned the school board and oversight. One of the things that's happening in our society is this push to remove the authority of the average person over the institutions that are affecting our lives. One of those institutions is the school system. What is your feelings about local control from the school board?
I mean, this is the taxpayers who are paying for the school system. It's the taxpayers paying for the salaries of the teachers and the staff and the administration. And there needs to be locally elected members of the community to serve on a board to oversee the spending of that money. We've had surpluses from our budget the last, I've lost track, 4 or 5 years, and yet they continue to ask for more and more money from the taxpayers. And right now, especially in Barre City, we're really struggling. I know, with the flood this summer, the water rates have gone up. The municipal budget, we haven't seen it yet, but it's likely going to be much larger than it was last year because we're still in recovery from that. The taxpayer needs to have a say, and my hope is to be able to represent the taxpayers in that capacity.
So earlier you mentioned that you're a supporter of unions, and I don't know if last year did the BEA get involved in the elections last year?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I don't remember any BEA involvement, but yet this year I've noticed that the BEA is now endorsing people.
Yeah, I think they're under.
That's crazy.
It is. It really is. I don't recall doing that for school board candidates when I was a teacher. Of course, we had separate boards for each of the schools at that time, and I don't think there was quite the race and competitiveness to be a board member at that time. I don't really know because I wasn't sort of involved in that side of things, but the Vermont NEA endorses statewide candidates and even national candidates from Vermont, and I don't think that that's something that they should do. It should be a nonpartisan organization. I've been to the National Education Association convention twice, actually, once in 2013 and once in 2014. It was a very eye-opening experience, and I sort of wish I could rewind and go back with the knowledge I have today, because I think it would have been a completely different experience for me. The amount of politics is it's unfortunate. We're all in the business of educating children, and that shouldn't be political.
I agree, 100%.
And Zachary Hughes says hello.
Hi, Zach.
Once again, I do want to remind folks that if you're listening, please drop a comment, drop a like, and share the video with folks. And also ask a question. And this way we can get questions asked of Sarah. So, Raylene, do you have one?
You keep talking, and I'll pull up my stuff on my phone here.
Keep talking. I'll keep talking.
Yeah, why not?
Well, all right. So let's see.
How
What?
about we can talk about something that you have mentioned before, so we can talk about when you say rubber stamp. What do we mean by that in the school board? We know we see it a lot. I know what you mean, but let's tell.
Yeah, so I've said, I don't know if it was in the article in the paper, but I have said the current school board has been a rubber stamp for the superintendent, and what I mean by that is there's no pushback, there's no questions, there's no trying to find a different or better way to go about accomplishing the goals, and when the superintendent, explains how they want to do something and everyone's like, yep, okay, trust the experts.
And he may not be the expert.
He may not be the expert. I mean, I don't claim to be the expert either. But asking questions should never be,
and collaborating with your team.
We're all there for the same goal, the same purpose, and we all want to get there in the most efficient and financially responsible way. So you have to have that push and pull to be able to get to that in that debate, right? So it's not an argument, it's a debate, and it's the purpose or the mechanism needed to get to the outcome in the best way possible.
Do you feel that there's a lot of work to be done in the way of, I don't want to say policy changes, but really looking at the policies that are in place right now, making sure they're implemented, especially when it comes to behavior? It doesn't seem like a lot of that is being done right now.
Yeah, I have to agree. The school board is not meant to micromanage the day-to-day operation of the schools. However, I believe it is the role of the board to kind of scrutinize what those policies are and how they're being implemented. We've had a lot of bad press in the last couple of years with bullying and things that have made the news. So all of that stuff starts in school. Those kids are there every single day, and some kids have to face these bullies day in and day out. And I was bullied in high school, and it's not fun. It's scary, in fact. And I think to be able to kind of review what our policies and procedures are, and to see that they're either working or they're not, is a role that the board can play. I don't think that we need to get any names or personal information in that sort of.
But oversee the safety
Right,
of the school that
right.
you're overseeing.
Absolutely, the safety of the students and the staff, and the faculty. So I think there was a lot of. I was pretty vocal, I guess, last year about a behavior committee and just kind of having an ad hoc short-term committee to really focus in on that one issue. And it was brought up again this year, and it's just been poo-pooed by the majority of the current board. And I don't understand why you wouldn't want to just look at that unless there's something you're trying to hide.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's how I feel about it too. I feel like why wouldn't you want to look at and address something like that? That seems like one of the easier things that is right in front of you that you could really make great changes to.
Yeah, especially since a committee's not going to make any changes. They're going to make recommendations to the board. They're just going to look at the sort of the stats and the data and come up with a conclusion of an idea or a direction to go in to help and make that better. So I'm just it boggles my mind why we wouldn't want to look into that.
It probably gets down to transparency in our district. I know that's one of the items that I was running on last year, a concern for transparency. Still have that concern, and which my question is going to be, what's your thoughts on transparency? Before you do that, I do once again want to let people know you can ask questions. I'm also going to drop the link to Sarah's Facebook page, or in case you want to go there and take a look and click the like.
I don't know how current it is. I haven't spent a whole lot of time on it this year.
Okay. It gives an opportunity for people to ask questions.
Sure.
after the show.
Sure.
Right.
Definitely better to ask questions directly versus popping them in the chat after we stop being live.
Yeah.
So with that, the transparency issue, there was, due to a huge FOIA, well, not that huge FOIA, but there was a FOIA done for, the dismissal of, or not the parting of ways of one of the superintendents, and how that was kind of like shuffled under the rug. Nobody knew about. It was an $80,000 payout, something like that. What are
Taxpayer money.
It's taxpayer money. What are your? Oh, my mic was not on. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Let me apologize for that.
Wonder if
and
you have any
all
lip
that
readers out
wonderful
there.
stuff that I was saying, nobody could hear. So I do apologize for that. Like I said, I was concerned about transparency. And one of the things about transparency, I did the FOIA to get all the information about, the let go of the previous superintendent that was kind of shuffled under the rug. Are you an advocate? I mean, and I know you are, but I'm going to have you. Are you an advocate of transparency? And what kind of things would you do to make our school board, our school BUUSD, more transparent in what it does?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally for transparency. If there's something to hide, then that's a problem. I mean, you can't share everything with the public. That's just not how it works. But the things that affect the public and the things that are being done with taxpayer money and with the students of our community need to be shared. There shouldn't be any hiding of anything. And I think we generally live in a world where you can hide behind your computer screen and you can hide behind your device and shoot things off by email or text and as a school board director, you need to be you're in the public eye. You've been elected by the public to serve the public, and transparency is just comes with the territory. That's seems quite logical to me.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of transparency as well. I appreciate your comments on that. And you're right. The whole keyboard warrior thing is definitely something that is a huge problem in our society. And, it's easy to do that. It's also easy to,
There are a lot of really good things about technology that are useful. But there's also a lot of downfalls that come with it.
Yeah. Yep. Do you have something else?
No.
No?
Not a no, because she's answered them as we've gone along. So I really don't. Yeah, I don't know.
So, do I want to ask you about long-term weighted average daily memberships?
Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. How about, would you like to simplify the term, Sarah? At least just the term.
You want the simplification of that term?
I mean, good
crazy
Lord,
speak
right?
and like pretend numbers.
Right.
So as you know, I get very angry about how people use the long-term daily measured.
It doesn't even have a good acronym.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
LTDWAM.
It doesn't.
It's horrible. And yeah, exactly. And and people use that as our per pupil spending, and it's not, and
It's
you know
not.
that, and I want to say I appreciate, someone like saying that, and I guess maybe I'll just come right out and say it. Do you know how to tell what an average is? Do you know how to use, it's
You
like,
mean simple math?
yeah, simple math.
You mean taking the total budget number and dividing it by the number of students we have in our district?
Yes,
Yes, I do.
oh,
Yes, I
okay.
do know how to do that.
So you must have went to school before Common Core.
I did actually.
Right,
I
before
did.
Common Core, exactly.
I honestly, I don't understand how they teach math to kids these days. I don't understand
Yeah.
it. And I loved math as a kid.
Me
I
too.
enjoyed going to math. I loved algebra. And I had my geometry class was taught by Fred Snow, who is a very famous painter in the area. I think that was his name, right? Swan. Excuse me, Fred Swan. I was close. Mr. Swan. He was my geometry teacher.
I never
And
took
taught us
geometry.
how
It
to
was
do
too high
proofs
advanced.
and so just a really good guy. And so we had algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and then I took analytical geometry and trigonometry or something like that. I don't know. I loved it.
I took applied math with Mr. Pinard.
I mean, I'm very mathematically wired. I'm very logical, linear type thinking. It's something my father always made fun of me for, but because he was always very abstract. And, I think logically, and I try and come up with the best logistical answer that there is and efficiency.
Yeah.
So
I'll just make the comment that under the long-term
whatever it
daily
is.
blah blah blah, it's $11,795, but the actual per pupil spending that we actually spend per pupil on an average basis in the BUUSD is a little over $30,000 per student.
That's insane.
It's a lot of money. I mean, I know the average down in Massachusetts, which has the highest academics in the United States. I think it's Massachusetts that has the highest. It's somewhere around 15,000.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but this new way to weight students, they're essentially saying that this 11,000 number per blah blah blah, like one student could be 3 times that.
Correct.
Right?
It does that. What that does is it was a formula that was created by our extremely intelligent people in Montpelier.
Yes.
That are,
I love the
elected
sarcasm.
there. They're very intelligent over there when they create this stuff, which is the reason why they had this mad dash scramble to get rid of the 5% cap, which would have cost an average homeowner $1,000 worth of taxes had they kept it going. Good job. Good job. Wouldn't that have been nice? You're only looking at like $400 right now for a $200,000 house. So if you couldn't afford it before,
Still
you
a
can't
lot.
afford it with $400.
It's still a lot.
Yes. But with that being said, they take into account the socioeconomic status of children and then apply that weighting to give a number that represents how much trouble you have in the school. And originally people said that
That was
BUUSD was going to benefit from Act 127. However, based on the fact that we're actually getting a 3-cent reduction in the tax rate, we actually did not benefit from Act 127. But, I guess it is what it is.
No, and I think the common sort of talking point from the other side is it's only a 1 cent increase on the tax rate. It's only it's really not. That's kind of cherry picking from, this was something I did an article in Front Porch Forum about. It's cherry picking from a line, several line items of how that formula is, they come to the figure. It's really more like a 13-cent increase on the tax rate, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
I just know that I actually have graphed it out on an Excel sheet, and for like a $200,000 house, it's like $400 for an increase. And
that's frightening.
But that's a
It is
lot.
a little
That's a
bit.
huge. That's it doesn't sound. Just $400. That's a lot.
Well, I mean, I think it's really a lot when if you're struggling to pay for, the current that you have, adding an additional $400 in there is
And we don't know what the municipal budget's going to add to that.
Right.
correct. And that could be a huge
Another 400.
Right.
It very well
I mean,
could be.
really?
Yeah. There's some significant troubles there. And a lot of that has to do with flood related. And on top of that, we've lost a lot of grand list, which is, one of the reasons why we can't just like go for buyouts on everything is because we have to take into account that there's long-term effects of buyouts. It's not you buy out a property and then you can put it on the market after you demolish it. That becomes a permanent green space forever. So decisions
If through FEMA.
if through FEMA, correct. So it has
You can't
to
rebuild.
Huh?
You can't rebuild.
No, not if you go through FEMA. It becomes a permanent green space. And so when folks are like, we'll just do the buyouts and be done with it, you have to be very,
Right.
very, very careful.
Go gingerly.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about city council
No.
stuff. We're here to talk about school board stuff. So,
We have a question.
oh, yes.
From someone. So, I don't want to say this wrong. Neely says, I'm curious where all the raises are going in the district to the faculty. Is it to the teachers or is it to the administration? Do we know that?
So I can tell you that the teacher contract was negotiated last year and that was ratified by the union and by the school board. Those raises are set in stone. There's
Right.
nobody can change that. The teachers will get paid what's in that contract regardless
Until there's another contract.
until there's another contract. The raises that are not wrapped up in a collective bargaining agreement are the administrative raises. And that's another Front Porch Forum post I put out. The amount of raises that are being given to the central office staff, I don't have names attached to these, but there are 5-digit increases in salary increases for multiple administrative positions.
Wow.
We're talking $25,000 increase on your salary. Did you get a $25,000 increase on your salaries this year?
No.
Because I certainly didn't.
Definitely not.
That's crazy. And if you go back and look at last year's budget, there were some pretty large increases then as well. I think that's
Somebody
something.
says they can't hear.
Yeah. I don't know why.
So. Is everybody else okay? Oh, it must
I get
be
a feeling,
because it must be them.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, no,
could- yeah.
the rest of the people could hear
Okay.
you because she's saying thank you.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that the board didn't really do this year was go through line by line of a budget to find places where we can cut back. And this just really grinds my gears because we had all that ESSER money that we knew was coming to an end. We knew it was going to stop. And there was no pre-planning of how that transition was gonna happen, and it's just been rolled into the taxpayers' budget. It's just we don't have a money problem here in Barre at the BUUSD. We have a money management problem, as evidenced by the surpluses we've had over the last however many budget cycles it's been. $1 million surpluses. We can't just keep putting that away into a slush fund. It's not fair to the taxpayers to keep asking for more money when we're not really spending it wisely to begin with, in my opinion.
So a little bit of history on the it's my understanding, and I could be wrong on this.
It hurts our heart too. She says, thank you. It's insane. As a teacher in the district, this hurts my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurts mine too, because they are the core, and it's not okay.
So Alice writes, 60% of the residents of Barre City are renters. What will the 14 cents do to their rent? Education is a method for getting people out of poverty, not pushing them into it. So what are your thoughts about because that's accurate.
Yeah, I mean, so the renters, while not directly affected by the increase of the property taxes, any owner of a rental property is going to hike up the rent costs in order to cover the cost of their increase. I mean, we've got heat and oil going up. We've got the property taxes going up. The water rate has gone up. I mean, all these things keep going up. And, I know that there are probably plenty of renters that have vouchers through the Section 8 program or other affordable housing subsidies. But even that, I mean, those subsidies are being paid with taxpayer dollars, So,
and there are plenty that rent that don't have that. And they're trying to make it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're paying upwards of 60, 70% of your income on your housing, that's a problem. Ideally, somebody should be paying 30% of their income towards their housing in a perfect world. And that's kind of what the voucher programs set up to, and I know that because I work at Vermont State Housing, and again, these subsidies, regardless of what type of subsidy, it's taxpayer money, and that's just, those rents go up and they go up and they go up, and then we can't help as many people because it's too expensive to help the people we're already helping.
So Bob asks, at the end of the day, is there a readout or a list of people working on the school system and the raises that they get and the amount, or is that privileged information? No, it's not privileged information.
Absolutely not.
What as a municipal worker or as a school worker, since you work for the government, your salary is not private. So you can certainly request that information from the business office. That's it.
Yeah, if you go to the BUUSD website, there is I believe it's right on the school board page, or the district page, excuse me, on how to request that information through the Freedom of Information Act.
That's a result of my harassment, I guess.
Well, and there are timelines associated with that law. So when you make a request, they have so many days to get back to you with a response of either, yes, we're going to give you that information, or no, we're not, because here's why. But if you're asking for public information, they shouldn't be holding any of that back.
Neely also says, we feel overlooked and overworked, yet we show up every single day for the children of our community. So,
been there.
How do you feel about where we're at with teachers feeling as though they can come forward and voice their concerns? Do you think that they're currently being heard by their administration at all, or do you think that there's a lot of work to be done on that?
Oh, I think there's a lot of work to be done. I sympathize with you. I've been there. It was probably maybe not as bad as it is now when I was there between 2008 and 2014. But I certainly understand where you're coming from, and I think there's got to be a mechanism for teachers to feel heard and to feel that they can voice their opinions without any fear of retaliation. So it's, I'm happy to listen to any thoughts from current staff and faculty members on things that need to be changed, and that's why I want to serve my community, because I want to be able to fix the things that need to be fixed.
And I think that's where you and I know that Shelley, the other candidate, also it was very much on that same page that, the teachers are the backbone and they need to feel supported. They need to get support. And
You can't have a school without teachers, and you can't have a school without the paraeducators and the staff, the office, front office staff, the bus drivers, the custodians. I mean, they're all important to make a school function. It's you can't forget about everybody, and everybody needs to be able to be heard, and there's got to be a way for people to voice their frustrations or their ideas to better our schools. I think Barre City and Barre Town and Spalding could be a great school system that people would want to come to our community and live in our community because of our schools. It used to be that way. It's not anymore. And I want to help and work towards getting back to that.
I do want to point out that something that I see as a school board member, as a community member, you're almost at every single one of the school board meetings via Zoom. Almost. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you are, at least for the
Admittedly,
most part.
I haven't been the last couple of weeks.
Oh no!
You caught me.
just the last couple of
sorry.
weeks, though.
Well, so yeah, I try and attend as many as I can.
Yeah, I've
and
seen you
if
way
I'm
more
elected,
than-
I will be there. I'm
Well-
it's something that I would take serious. And show up. Sorry,
I've seen you there quite a bit. You're there a lot, so I was just pointing that out. You may have missed like 2 in the last couple weeks,
Right.
but
But you
for the
certainly
most
know
part,
how the
you-
gears are
yeah.
turning
Oh, yeah.
right now.
So it's not like a learning curve,
No.
right? And that's what I was trying to get to. It's just not a learning curve for you because you've been doing it. It's
Yeah.
like when I was there for I was there with you. We were both going to the school board meetings for almost a year prior, and then yeah. So I just wanted to point that out and say thank you for being involved.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I mean, I've certainly participated in meetings and asked questions and spoken up about things. I don't feel like the majority of my comments or questions were really taken into consideration by the current majority. But you got to keep asking questions and keep speaking up because we can't just wash our hands of it.
so one of the problems that our district deals with immensely is socioeconomic issues. How do you see the school playing a role in that? Now, this is a really wide open conversation question, and it's just coming to my mind, and I figured I'd ask. How do you see the school system affecting socioeconomic issues? And then
Well-
I'll get to my next question, which will be about cognitive delay, which I ask all candidates about for screen time.
It is a huge question, and things have really changed over the last couple of decades with the role the school plays. Teachers are no longer just teachers; they're coaches and mentors and
Parents in some
parents
cases.
and these some of these kids don't have much at home, and we've got backpack programs for kids to take food home on the weekend, and so they have a meal. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'm certainly willing to have that conversation and figure it out. I think that's part of the reason that teachers are so taxed, because they're not just showing up to do their job and teach the material. They're having to deal with the behavior issues. They're having to deal with, Johnny doesn't have a jacket to go out to recess today, and it's 10 degrees. So, it's things like that make the job harder, but I think it also is what makes the job worth it and fulfilling, knowing that you can make a difference for these kids. I've been there. I've certainly seen it firsthand at Barre City. My experience was that there's just a huge diverse population there, from kids that are struggling to have a meal and a roof over their head, to extraordinarily gifted and intelligent students. Not to say that they're exclusive, but gosh, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of conversation to be had, and I'm certainly willing to be solution oriented on that.
Neely says, I want to thank you for answering publicly about the raises. And Bob says, thank you, Sarah, for bringing up the paraeducators.
Yeah.
They can be the lowest paid and have the most stressing job, as they're one of the one-on-ones, even though guided by a support manager.
I don't think people really understand what the paraeducators do. I really don't think that the general public understands the importance of their role, and I don't think that they understand the stresses and how taxing that job can be. I don't have personal experience, but I've certainly worked alongside paraeducators, and they are so incredibly helpful, and they're paid shitty wages, but they show up day after day to be there for the students and to be there for the teachers, and we couldn't have a school without them.
All right, moving on to, I was going to make a joke, but about the cuss word that you used, but you can use cuss words on this show.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can use cuss word. You just can't use the 3-letter word that starts with G, ends with N.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or
So-
they seriously.
Yeah,
we've
you're
been
not allowed to
shut
use,
down before for
yeah,
saying
do
that
not
word.
use the
Oh.
G, U,
Okay.
N.
Or
You go,
it's
pew,
like,
pew.
yeah, pew pew. You
gotta
can
say
say pew
pew,
pew.
You gotta
Well,
do pew pew.
good thing that's not a relevant
No.
conversation.
I know.
Relevant
Oh my
word to our
goodness.
conversation.
Yes,
I
no.
know.
But so you
But
can,
it's
you
crazy
can swear.
that-
It's
Yeah.
okay.
You know.
Yeah.
So talking about cognitive delay, one of there was a recent article or a recent study released about how children are suffering from cognitive delay, and you can tell that that's happening because of screen time, right? And we know it, everybody knows it, and nobody wants to deal with it. And the question for you is, what are your thoughts on the problem of the screen time that we have?
Well, I have 2 nephews in grade school. They're just about to be 11 and 10 this month, who have an exorbitant amount of screen time, and it worries me. I didn't have that growing up. It wasn't available, and I know that. My biggest concern is that they're not learning skills and problem solving, and how to play with other people, and how to figure out how not to be bored, and I think when I was a kid, and if I ever said I was bored, I would be kicked out of the house and
Right.
go find something to not be bored with, and that's just not possible. It just doesn't happen today. And my youngest niece, and probably soon my youngest nephew, will be on screens, and I see the draw. I see the draw to it. It's a time when a parent can say, you entertain yourself with that so I can get this done. And, as a As an aunt, I've certainly benefited from that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this isn't, this is no judgment on any parent who allows their children to use screens. It's as a whole, as a sort of general statement, our generation is, I think, going to be lacking in some
Social skills.
social skills. Yeah. And just, you know, problem solving. You know, this is another sort of example that I think about. When I was in school, if I didn't get along with somebody, or two kids didn't get along, then they had to sit on the bench at recess together until they could figure it out and get along. And today the response to two kids that can't get along is, oh, we got to put them in two different classes. We got to separate them. We got to, and so there's no
communication.
There's no communication.
At all.
There's no problem solving and conflict resolution, those kinds of things. You know, again, I'm not trying to make a judgment on parents and screens and whatnot. It's just, I just hope that those kids can get those skills in another way.
And I wasn't necessarily referring to parents.
No,
I was thinking more in the school setting.
Sure.
I know that there's legislation being pushed through by Andrew Perchlik, which I have mentioned him, very much thankful for, to get rid of cell phones in the school system. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were on you know, it's obviously
absolutely. I think why do you need your phone at school? Why? You're there with your friends. You might not have classes with all of them every second of the day, but you have to be able to put your phone down and you know, when the bell rings in the morning, put it down, and when the bell rings at 3:00 or whatever time school gets out, you pick your phone up and then you can text whomever you want and social media left and right. Again, we didn't have cell phones when I was in college. I think my first cell phone I got in college, and the only reason I was allowed to have a cell phone was because I was driving to West Virginia to go to school by myself. So that was a safety tool. So it was a flip phone, you know, but whatever.
Nokia.
The first one I ever had was a bag phone, and it was huge.
I think it was a Samsung.
I did have a bag
actually.
phone.
It was a Samsung.
It was a silver Samsung.
You're younger than me, aren't you?
I am younger than you, yes.
Oh my goodness,
by a
that's so
little bit.
gross.
I graduated high
Everybody's
school
younger than
in
me.
2001, so.
Oh yeah.
You know, we didn't have those.
1998 was
things,
better.
And we did just fine. You know, you're gonna survive, and I think. I don't see the need for phones in school. I don't. I think the technology that's available, you know, with iPads and other tablets and stuff in the classroom, you can get by with that. I'd love to hear the other side of it.
Well,
You know, I'd love to hear the argument and have a conversation about it, because, you know, I can sit on my high horse, but you know, you want that push and pull, like I was talking about earlier.
So Neely, I'm assuming she's a teacher. Is that correct?
Yes, she said she's a teacher. Yes.
The screens and technology seem to now be embedded in our education and teaching. And she says, I'd love to see now that remote learning is over, that the Google Classroom dissolves. And you
Absolutely.
know what? As do I.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
Google Classroom was there prior to COVID.
I know, but it's still the same thing
It
for
should
me.
go
I want
away.
to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of like dumping all the computers and having specific classes for computers, but not.
I think technology can enhance certain things in education, but I don't think we should be trying to use a technology just to use technology.
Right.
You know, there's got to be a purpose for it. There's got to be something to be gained from the material that's being taught.
I'm just a big proponent of books. That
Yeah.
I mean, I never read books, but the point is that I mean, I'm absolutely 100%. You know,
But writing
wrong
instead
and
of
everything.
typing
But like
everything,
writing, like,
and
cursive is a lost art.
people have even stopped. So,
But even kids don't know how to type.
no,
they don't know how to.
because we can talk to text now too.
I know.
And
But I mean, on
all
a
of that stuff,
keyboard,
yeah.
on a computer keyboard, kids don't. They peck.
yeah,
I remember going to the computer lab in 5th grade
Yep.
with my teacher, Mrs. Fleck.
yeah.
And we played this. I mean, it was a typing game, but you had to like it tracked your score and how quick, how fast you type, and how accurate you were, and we had a goal. We had a thing. We accuracy and speed that we had to meet to pass that class. And I type pretty darn fast these days, so
I do not. I still I peck.
you're proving my point here, Michael.
Yeah, exactly.
I
How do you feel about tech?
hold up. Wait a minute. No.
What?
Wait, no. I need to like follow up with that comment.
All right.
When I was growing up in school, we had Oregon Trail on the Apple II, okay?
Yes.
And when I was in 7th or 8th grade is when we started talking about, learning how to type. And it was just computer lab. I think we used DOS. I mean,
Oh
so
God.
don't go down that road of like, oh, I'm superior.
I remember the
'cause-
big floppy disks.
Yeah,
right?
the 5.5. Yeah.
Yes, the big floppy disks that were actually floppy.
Yes.
But
But
that you would
well,
put into
I'm
the
just
computer.
saying that
Green on green.
Don't judge me for my typing when it wasn't necessary
Yeah.
to be able to type. Well, you still don't need to type fast anyway.
How
You
would
know what? I do my job.
I want to
fine.
know how would you feel, or do you think it's beneficial to kids of today to reintroduce some of the home ec classes?
Oh, God,
I don't
yes.
know if you had them, but when I was in school, we did cooking
Yep.
and sewing
Mrs.
and
Ritchie.
yes, exactly. And human, it wasn't. I don't think we called it sex ed then. Maybe we did, but I don't really recall.
That's a whole other conversation.
Right. But it was more about learning about our bodies and puberty and in that sort of stuff than nothing else.
They do that in 5th grade
Right.
now.
But and then as you go into high school, even more tech classes where you're learning a skill, a trade, because not everyone is college ready or even wants to go to college.
I don't think all kids should go to college. It's
Thank
not
you.
for everybody. And there are plenty of careers that do not require college degrees. Trade schools and trades are just as important. And quite frankly, you can make good money being a plumber or an electrician. Try and call a plumber today. They're booked solid. So
Well, not only that, you're right. They can make good money individually, but taking that skill and then creating a business, and then you just get bigger and bigger, and you can make a lot of money doing that.
oh yeah.
I mean, we all know people that took that route, and they're doing quite well for themselves.
They're in high demand. Everybody who owns a house needs a plumber, needs an electrician, needs, at some point in their home ownership days, when I bought my house, my detached garage didn't have any electricity, so I hired an electrician to bury some line and put some electric current in my garage, so now I can have an electric garage opener. It's the little things.
Well, hey, that's a big thing.
But college is not for everybody. I went to college, and I'm grateful for my experience in college. And it led me on the path to where I am today, and but it's not for everybody. It's not. In some cases, it's just not necessary. And to be honest, last month I finally paid off my undergrad degree.
Wow.
I'm 40 years old, and I finally no longer have college debt.
Yeah.
So it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, depending on what you want to do and the career you want, really, really think, is that necessary? Is that crucial for the career path you want?
Yeah. Well, I mean, now I kind of want to ask the question: is do you support the idea of us paying off people's college?
No. Nobody paid off my debt.
Yeah.
I mean, why
But
should
you
I
just work hard to do it?
Why should I
Everybody
pay
is
off yours?
saying congratulations for that, because
Yeah.
that is a monumental thing to do, is to pay off your college debt.
Absolutely.
Especially in today's society where
Yes,
they don't
it
want to
is.
pay their college debt off.
Yeah,
Congratulations for that.
Well, and that's just it. Really think about if college is what you want, because it's a lifetime of debt, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably even worse now, because if you can't get scholarships and grants, and you have to get loans to go to college, really, really think about that, because regardless of what kind of job you have coming out of college, you've got to pay those loans. And even if you defer them, you're, racking up interest. I wish I had known, I wish I had been better sort of informed about that going into it. I don't think I really fully understood what college loans were really about. And I know the whole college loan piece has changed since I went, but really think about it.
At the end of the day, what would end the problem with our education system is allow people to bankrupt out of college debt. That would significantly modify education in our society for college. That's my opinion.
I would say that a lot of these colleges don't need to charge the amount that they're charging. I mean, what are they charging for? Depending on the size of the school. I mean, I went to a private school. It was probably $30,000 a year, and I had some scholarships, but not a lot. And it's hard for a kid in high school to really understand and have that
Most
forethought.
definitely.
I certainly didn't. But, the kids that are at the top of their class and are, have their, the highest GPA, or will end up being salutatorian or valedictorian, good for you. Everybody should strive for that, because that can get you a full ride into a state school here in Vermont.
Oh man, I'm gonna get into trouble. What if I say this? Did they take that off from doing that?
Did they?
Oh man, I don't know. I may have heard that might be a rumor. I thought someone had told
I don't know.
If somebody knows in the comments, please let us know whether or not they are no longer
We do
doing
have
those.
a question.
Yeah, we got it's one
Two questions
two questions
from
from
Neely.
one person. But I if you know whether or not they're still doing the
I hope they are.
Because I heard that they're not doing that anymore, because it makes, and this is probably the reason why it's not the case.
It's not fair.
It's not fair.
It's not
and it makes people feel
fair.
uncomfortable about it. So if somebody could
goodness.
pop that in the chat, that might be inaccurate in my comments. So
I hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too.
But yeah.
I will say, do you want to ask the question? And this will probably be our last two questions, except for the one I do got a question about grading. If you like the idea of our current proficiency grading, or
I think I have the unpopular view on that, but
I don't think it's oh, you like proficiency grading. Okay. Okay, never mind.
we'll talk about it.
Okay, so do you want to ask the question, or do you want me to ask it over?
Go ahead.
All right. So the first question is, how do you feel about consistency within school day schedules, core classes, English, math, history, science, versus making less time for cores and more time for the electives in the elementary grades? It's a really I'm struggling to
Well, I mean, I'm a music teacher, and so I know that electives are really important, especially the arts. If you want a well-rounded person, you want them to have schooling in the arts. There are numerous studies done on the effects of learning music, specifically on the brain. Kids who play instruments do better on tests. They do better in life and just in general. I'd be willing to bet that if you ask your physician, your doctor, if they played an instrument as a kid, I bet 9 times out of 10 they say yes. Same with lawyers and the higher degree professions. Excuse me. So there's something to be said for electives, and I'm not sure, specifically what electives you're talking about, but the core classes are, of course, the more, the core. There's a reason they're called core classes, because they are the core of the education, and, just teaching music is not going to have somebody be a well-rounded student. You have to have the math and the history, and as I've gotten older, I've realized how important history is and how learning our history is really important, because our media and even our federal government right now is trying to erase our history. And if you don't study and know at least some background of our history, that kind of information can inform how we move forward. My nephew said the other day, I don't understand, why can't we just let the past be the past? And I said, well, it's the past that informs the future, my friend. So I know that those are, it's hard for a kid to understand the importance of it. And I get that, because I've been there. Do you need to memorize all the dates? And, you need to know the general time period. When was the Civil War? When was the Revolutionary War? Why were they important? What about the French Revolution? Like, there's these things all play a role in how we move forward with our decisions, and our opinions about those decisions are very much can be swayed by history.
So I will say, following up on your comment there, and I just Googled to find out who actually said it, because it's one of my favorite quotes of all time, which is, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat
it.
Yeah. And that's a huge 100% accurate.
I agree. Yep.
It's interesting to see.
I could go on for days about it, and it gets
It was George Santana, I guess, that said it.
It gets into political territory, and so I'm not going to go there now, but we have to remember where we came from. And so, history, math, reading, writing, all of that is super important.
So we are pushing up against an hour. So I don't want to.
But you have to ask part 2.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. I
Bring
wanted to do that. So what is your take on so many high school students veering towards the trades tech center versus staying in mainstream high schools?
As long as they're doing it to really pursue it, and not just to get out of going to regular classes. I think there's something to be said for the trades, as I spoke about earlier. Some kids do better working with their hands. Some kids do better sitting in a classroom. And we've got some emergency lights behind us. I think that the trades are important as well. And having a well-rounded education with the core subjects So I never went to the tech center, so I don't really know. And my understanding is that they are offering full day classes or full day programming now, so that they're getting the trades and they're also getting the English and math and the standard courses. So I think that's great. Yeah, I mean, the traditional way of education, I think, needs to be looked at, and that's a much larger conversation. You know, the system, the education system that we have today was came out of the Industrial Revolution. It hasn't really been looked at in a long time. So but like I said, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, and I think they've been
And that's
looking,
not in the
and we
purview
do
of
that
the
in
school board.
right?
So.
And we do it all the time anyway. I think that is the case with current jobs, everything. There's, we've had to adapt and meet people where they're at because that's just what we do now. You meet parents where they're at so that they can still be good parents, and there are some people with different educational needs, and I think that as a whole, I think that we've done okay, but we could certainly do better at meeting people where they're at. That doesn't mean
Lower the bar.
Right, lowering the bar or no discipline or things like that. That isn't what that means at all.
No.
But I think that we do okay, but we could use some work in that department.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really good segue into your last question. So I'll go ahead and let you ask that because I'm ready.
Well, I wasn't going to, but I
ready.
mean, if you want me to, I certainly can ask it. So I will ask then about your thoughts on proficiency grading. And one of the reasons why I feel that it's an issue within our society is because most people are familiar with the A, B, C, D, E, F, or no E. Sorry, no E, no E.
No E.
It goes immediately from D to F.
Some schools use the E and some schools use the F. So we don't want them to feel bad.
I think a kid coming home with a report card that says not proficient means absolutely nothing, whereas a kid coming home with a D tells a parent like, hey, you know what? You're close to F. Maybe you should fix it.
Right.
I would argue the opposite.
All right.
So
go for
what
it.
does a D mean? That means that
Subpar.
Well, but on what? On what?
On everything in that class.
But
You're
are you?
just-
So I am a supporter of proficiency grading, and let me explain, because it's got to be done right. And if the staff and the teachers don't have the training and the the right way to go about it, it can end horribly wrong, because it really does take a lot of buy-in from the students. So when I see a report card that says D for a single subject, what does that mean? What aren't they meeting standard on? What are they not? Does that include their attendance? Does that include their participation? Does that include, are they doing well in any of those areas? It takes everything and puts it into one bowl and mixes it all up, and then you're just left with brown bleh. Whereas when you have a specific standard and you can say they are either proficient or not proficient, or exceeding expectations, that tells me more about what the student knows. They might in let's say in a math class be really good at addition and subtraction, but struggling with fractions or whatever the case may be. And so does that mean that they should average those two together? I don't think so. I know, like I said, it's the unpopular opinion. When I was taking...
Well, I don't know. You may have just changed mine. I don't know now how I feel about that, because now I feel like I agree with you a little bit.
It's got to be done right. It's got to be done the right way. And it takes a lot of work from a teacher to grade in that way. And I think it's very easy, and I'm not making any judgment statements. I think it's very easy to kind of fluff it off and just kind of whatever. And I get that, because teachers do so much. It takes a lot to be effective in that grading method. When I took my master's classes to get my master's degree, we had an entire class on assessments and grading and things like that. And that's when I really was turned on by the whole proficiency grading level method. So the other piece of it is, regardless of where a student comes in on their knowledge, you go to a freshman math class, and half your freshmen are at this level and the other half are up here. They should both be making upward motion. We shouldn't be letting these students hang out to let the other ones catch up. Everybody should be making progress. And if you're coming in with a higher level of knowledge and you walk out without learning anything, what's the point? You could have just tested out of that class. Which isn't an option. There's a lot to be said for it. And I think, is it being done correctly? I don't know. I really don't know. And I think, I think a letter grade doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't give me any solid information about what the student knows.
All right. Well, with that, like I said, we're up against an hour, so I want to give you an opportunity to give your last pitch to say, why should you vote for me, and get to the polls on Tuesday, 2 days away, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. At the Barre Auditorium for Barre City. So give your final hurrah push.
So if you want to see some positive change in our school district, and a school board who pushes back and asks questions, then I'm the one for you, because I want the best for our students. I want the best for our teachers. I want the best for our staff, and I want the best for our community, and the taxpayers. And do I have all the answers? Of course not. But I will work very hard to represent the community and work with the best interest of our schools in mind all the time. I'm very passionate about education, and I want to see our schools thrive, like I know they can.
All right. Well, thank you for coming and being on the Barre Beat and allowing folks to ask questions of you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. The questions were awesome. Thank you.
Not a problem. Hopefully they weren't too terrible. And Raylene, obviously, thank you for being here. And thank you to everybody for watching the Barre Beat podcast live from Main Street, Barre, Vermont. Right here on Fly in the Wall Productions.